live still. I'm running from there. Hello. Ooh, my hair's doing a fun sort of like lumpy thing, just like celebrating Monday. I don't know. Okay, good. The clock is going out. Fun story. I really need to shower, so hair looks a mess. And here I am on the internet. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. So here I am. Look, just sort of. You can't really tell from this angle because that's our like tea section of our kitchen. But like, the kitchen is mostly clean. Look at that. Look at that. Look at this table. We had communion here yesterday. That's why there's wine on the table at 8:30 in the morning, not because I have been imbibing. Anyway, welcome to Magic Monday. Welcome to Monday. Welcome to this week. Welcome to June. I'm just gonna dig right into it. Opening this sucker. Yeah. Magic Monday. Here it is. So let me, I forgot how I normally do this because I haven't done it this way in a while. Creatures. I split up the creatures and the spells and the Planeswalker. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Welcome to Magic Monday, I guess, again. So let's start with the creatures. Ooh, I want to do that one last because it's a shiny. So we've got Tybalt's Rager. So Tybalt threw a party, and it was, let me tell you, a rager. It's a 1/2, cost of 2, and then it has an extra ability where when it dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. That's sort of nice. And then for an extra 2 mana, it can get +2/+0 until end of turn. So that's sort of like going back to our Vampire Opportunist. It can be better. This would be more sort of like a good mid-game as well as a good beginning, because it's cheap for a 1/2, then it has a good sort of contingency plan for if it dies. Wow, this is just like a very pronounced hair lump, but we'll deal with it later. Yeah, so a good beginner and a good middle of the game pull. Not much to say about this. It's red. It's a devil. I haven't really experienced much about things synergizing with devil creatures. So yeah, it's just pretty standard. Spellgorger Weird. We have definitely talked about this before. It is a 2/2 and it costs 3. And oh yeah, and then whenever you cast a non-creature spell, so when it's on the field, and you cast another spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Spellgorger Weird. That's nice because of the counters. Counters are just nice. This you would want to get out early-ish so that you can get as many +1/+1 counters as you can, or want to, or can. Would also sort of work with like the amass spells, because in order to amass, you need to cast a spell, right? So that is sort of like automatically something that also helps this. And so you're sort of simultaneously building up 2 creatures at once, both your zombie army and your Spellgorger. Other than that, a 3 cost for a 2/2. It's sort of expensive for a 2/2. I'm guessing because of the 1/1 counter ability, but that's not super helpful in the, like, that makes it harder to get out early. And it would be a good one to get out early. So I don't know how I feel about it. And I hope that I'm consistent when I talk about these things, the same creatures week to week. We've got Snare Spinner, which I think we've also talked about. It is a 2 cost for a 1/3, and it has reach, which is nice. Reach means that it can attack or can defend against flying. Whenever it blocks a creature with flying, Snare Spinner gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Okay, so it can kill a creature with flying, or at least prevent a creature with flying from attacking. Because they would have to come up with some sort of weird strategy to get it so that the flying creature it would either have to be stronger than a 3/3, not unheard of, or have some sort of weird strategy to get it so that this creature doesn't block the flying creature. So if you have more than one flying creature, there you go. There's your weird strategy right there. Dusk Mantle Operative, we've talked about this. This is sort of a sneaky one. It's a 2 cost for a 2/2, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 4 or greater. So in the scenario that I was outlining before, where you've got 2 characters or 2 creatures that are building up over time, if that's your opponent, and so your opponent has powerful creatures out, and you can't get them not out. You can't attack them because you don't have powerful creatures. You could use the Dusk Mantle Operative to sort of sneak some damage in there under the wire. It could also be useful if you were able to get +1/+1 counters on it with some other card, because then that makes it powerful while also simultaneously not allowing it to be blocked by other creatures that are powerful enough to stop it. Creature Zombie Naga. This is a 3 cost 3/2. We've talked about this guy before. Not a whole lot to say. 3 cost for a 3/2 is not terrible. That's all I got. Raging Crunch. It's an interesting name for a creature. Raging Crunch can't attack alone. It's a 3 cost for a 4/3, which is nice. So you could get sort of a cheaper, less powerful creature in with this guy so that he can attack. That would be interesting if you use the Dusk Mantle Operative with it, because then Dusk Mantle Operative can't be blocked by things that could block this guy. I'm trying to figure out if that's a good thing or a bad strategy. My mind's not working super great today, so we'll just move on. All right, here is the shiny. You can see it on my face. It's shiny. It's called Feather the Redeemed, and it's a cost 3 for a 3/4 flying. Look at that shiny. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next step. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. Okay, so, exile the instant or sorcery. Okay. So you can basically reclaim instants and sorceries that you use to buff your creatures. It's a 3 cost for a 3/4. And that's sort of a nice bonus. So especially if you were relying on things like +1/+1 counters, or just in general buffing up creatures, this would be a good way to be able to reuse those spells more than once, because you would be able to bring them back into your hand. All right, those are the creatures for this. Let's go into the spells. We've got my hair is getting everywhere, as well as being just wild. Tamayo's Epiphany. I think this is a new one. It's a cost 4 for a sorcery. You can scry 4 and then draw 2 cards. So scry 4 means when you scry 1, you look at the top card of your deck. I think you can then decide whether it stays on the top of your deck or if it goes to the bottom of your deck. So if you scry 4 and then draw 2, you can sort of decide I assume scry 4 means not scry 4 times, but scry 4 cards. If you scry 4 times, then you could just be scrying the same card over and over again. But I don't think that's how it works. So if you've got, you can basically choose the next 2 cards that you draw. So that's a nice bonus. It costs 4, and it is a sorcery, so you can't just cast it any time, which makes sense. It's the card that makes you draw cards. So it's a little expensive, which is not usually what you want for something that makes you, like, drawing cards. There's 2 times when, like, you're desperate to draw cards, and that's 1 when you don't have mana, and 2 when you don't have generally creatures. Like, if you have creatures, you have something to do, even if you don't have super powerful creatures or specific spells that you're looking for. If you have creatures, you're going somewhere. But if you don't have mana, you can't cast them. And if you don't have the creatures in your hand, then you've just got all of these spells that maybe boost creatures that you don't have, that sort of thing. So if in one of those issues, if you don't have mana, you're probably not going to be able to cast this 4-cost spell. Unless what you're looking for is like a different color mana than blue. So you have a lot of blue mana and you're looking for, the other color in your deck. So there's that. This would be exceptionally useful for creatures because it lets you be selective about what you're drawing, which is normally the problem with draw cards that let you draw, is that you just sort of are drawing and praying that what you're getting is what you need. Giant growth. This is really interesting. I have a different version of this card from another printing, I think, where there's a bear on the art instead of this giant dog. Giant, very angry dog. So target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn, and it's a cost 1. Yeah, no, I think the giant growth that I have is that too. I thought it was a cost 2, but I think it's probably cost 1. And yeah, that's pretty straightforward. It can be useful. It's frustrating because it only lasts 1 turn, but you can play it as an instant. You can play it after you've attacked somebody. So you could like play a little switcheroo on them and end up killing them in a way that they didn't expect, because they'll declare a blocker and then you increase the power of the creature that you're attacking them with. So then they die. Battlefield promotion. This is a 2 cost for an instant that puts a +1/+1 counter on a target creature, and that creature gains first strike until end of turn, and you gain 2 life. So a 2 cost for a lot of those things. This is a pretty good card, as I recall. I don't know if that's what I said before. You'll have to let me know, anyone who's watched multiple of these, and if I'm like inconsistent in whether I say a card is good or what it's good for. I'm curious to know how off base I am. Gideon's Sacrifice. I do not remember it looking like this. I just saw this card like on our table when I was cleaning it off. I do not remember this art. This art is intense. Like this man putting his hand on this woman's shoulder, and he's like burning up, and she's like doing something. Anyway, it's a cost 1. Choose a creature or a planeswalker you control. All damage that would be dealt this turn to you, and permanents you control is dealt to the chosen permanent instead, if it is still on the battlefield. Okay, so yeah, you just sacrifice 1 creature or planeswalker in place of another, or in place of life that you could lose. So I remember seeing this, but I don't remember this card. It's pretty intense. As a cost 1, it's useful, especially if you've got a card, a creature or a planeswalker that is likely to be a big target, something that's got a good ability, or something that is like low power and strength, or low power and toughness, but has something that's very useful about it. Or if it's something that you need to keep out on the table for a while because it's got like some time sensitive thing, or time like builds over time. That would be helpful. It's a cheap one. You can play it and sort of redirect that power. It can also be like last-ditch attempt to not die if you're like taking some fatal fatal death attacks. Usually when it gets to that, though, you're just sort of postponing the inevitable. So unless that is somehow not what you're doing, wouldn't recommend it. So the next one is Dovin's Veto. I think we've talked about this one because I remember it being a veto. And the spell cannot be countered. It is an instant, and it costs 2, 1 white and 1 blue. And it counters target non-creature spell. So that's nice because you can counter a spell, meaning they have to not cast it. They have to, I think that means they discard it. If they've spent the mana already, then they've spent the mana. And it can't be countered, so they can't like then come across and say like, no, you can't count. I'm going to stop your counter, which is nice. That doesn't happen very often in my experience, but when it does, it's really obnoxious. And it's a cost 2, which is pretty nice. Now it can't counter a creature spell, which means that you cannot prevent someone from putting a creature out this way. And that's, that's pretty standard 2 cost spell. You got to give up something. And so by saying this cannot be countered, you don't want to give it so much power that someone also can't put out a creature with that. And then the last one, Raw's Outburst. It is a 4 cost. It deals 3 damage to any target, and then you look at the top 2 cards of your library and put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. And it's an instant. So you could use it to do like the final damage to a creature. Or, I mean, if you just need a card, either again, like you're looking for mana, or you're looking for a creature, or you're looking for something specific, you could use this to do damage to your opponent and also get something from your deck that you were looking for. So that's all the instants and sorceries and enchantments. There weren't any enchantments that I recall. The last is the Planeswalker. And I think, no, I don't know that we have this one. Vivien, Champion of the Wilds. We've had Arlen, who is also a green female Planeswalker. She's nice. Her sort of static spell is you may cast creature spells as though they had flash. So flash on any spell, flash on a creature means that you can cast them like instants. You can cast them when it's not your turn. So that's pretty big. That's a good deal. Which would make her a target. And then she has a +1 spell, so this gives her +1 loyalty. So if she's, you can increase her, like loyalty is the same as sort of like hit points. So you can increase her life by casting the spell until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature gains vigilance and reach. That's a very good +1 spell. You would want to cast that every turn. Especially if they've got a flying creature out. But even if they don't, like just having vigilance is really nice. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. This is the -2. And so this one costs her life to cast. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as it remains exiled, you may look at that card and you may cast it, and you may cast it if it is a creature card. So you can leave it exiled for as long as you want, and at any point cast it from exile. It's interesting. And that's the kind of spell that you want as a -2, and in my experience, because it's got like very specific use times when you would want to use it. If it's the spell that you want to use every turn, then you're going to quickly kill your Planeswalker, and she's only a cost 3 too, which is nice for a Planeswalker, especially with those stats and abilities. So I don't know. I approve of her. I don't have any green decks. I don't have any decks with green cards in them. Otherwise, I'd try to put her in there. But I don't have any green. So I've gotten much faster at talking through this token creature, an assassin. That's a 1/1 death touch. Whenever this creature deals damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. Token creatures can only be cast by something that says, like, under this circumstance, put out a token creature. And usually it will say in that card what the token creature's abilities are. So somewhere, and I thought it was going to show up in this pack, but it didn't. Somewhere there is a card that creates an assassin token creature with death touch and the ability to destroy planeswalkers in one hit. That's pretty intense. Gotta find that card. But anyway, this has been Magic Monday. I gotta go shower, get this hair sort of like sorted out. My dogs want to go outside. Gotta start my day and my week and all that stuff. So make good choices. Don't do drugs. Stay safe out there. Yeah. Be excellent to each other, as they say.